The king arrives through the sovereign's entrance and enters the robing room. The royal procession starts in the royal gallery. The king enters the House of Lords chamber and sits on the throne.
My lords, pray be seated.
Black Rod knocks on the door to the Commons chamber. Black Rod summons the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, the King commands his Honourable House to attend His Majesty immediately in the House of Peers.
MPs, Black Rod and Commons officials make their way to the Lords. MPs and Commons officials stand in the Lords chamber to listen to the King's speech.
My lords and members of the House of Commons.
The King leaves, a new session starts, and both houses start to debate the content of the speech.
Commons. My government will govern in service to the country. My government's legislative programme will be mission-led and based upon the principles of security, fairness and opportunity for all. Stability will be the cornerstone of my government's economic policy, and every decision will be consistent with its fiscal rules. It will legislate to ensure that all significant tax and spending changes are subject to an independent assessment by the Office for Budget Responsibility. Bills will be brought forward to strengthen audit and corporate governance alongside pension investment. Securing economic growth will be a fundamental mission. My government will seek a new partnership with both business and working people and help the country move on from the recent cost of living challenges by prioritising wealth creation for all communities. My ministers will establish an industrial strategy council. It is my government's objective to see rising living standards in all nations and regions in the United Kingdom. My ministers will get Britain building, including through planning reform, as they seek to accelerate the delivery of high-quality infrastructure and housing. They will also pursue sustainable growth by encouraging investment in industry, skills and new technologies. My government is committed to making work pay and will legislate to introduce a new deal for working people to ban exploitative practices and enhance employment rights. It will seek to establish the appropriate legislation to place requirements on those working to develop the most powerful artificial intelligence models. My government believes that greater devolution of decision-making is at the heart of a modern dynamic economy and is a key driver of economic growth, and my ministers will introduce an English devolution bill. Legislation will be introduced to give new powers to metro mayors and combined authorities. This will support local growth plans that bring economic benefit to communities. A bill will be introduced to allow local leaders to take control of their local bus services. My ministers will bring forward legislation to improve the railways by reforming rail franchising, establishing Great British Railways and bringing train operators into public ownership. Taken together, these policies will enhance Britain's position as a leading industrial nation and enable the country to take advantage of new opportunities that can promote growth and wealth creation. My government recognises the urgency of the global climate challenge and the new job opportunities that can come from leading the development of the technologies of the future. It is committed to a clean energy transition which will lower energy bills for consumers over time. A bill will be introduced to set up Great British Energy, a publicly owned clean power company headquartered in Scotland, which will help accelerate investment in renewable energy such as offshore wind. Legislation will be brought forward to help the country achieve energy independence and unlock investment in energy infrastructure. A bill will be introduced to support sustainable aviation fuel production. My government recognises the need to improve water quality, and a bill will be introduced to strengthen the powers of the water regulator. My government will seek to strengthen the border and make streets safer. A bill will be introduced to modernise the asylum and immigration system, establishing a new border security command and delivering enhanced counter-terror powers to tackle organised immigration crime. Legislation will be brought forward to strengthen community policing, give the police greater powers to deal with antisocial behaviour and strengthen support for victims. Measures will be introduced to improve the safety and security of public venues and help keep the British public safe from terrorism. My government will bring forward plans to halve violence against women and girls. My ministers will seek to raise educational standards and break down barriers to opportunity. Action will be taken to get people back in employment following the impact of the pandemic. A bill will be introduced to raise standards in education and promote children's well-being. Measures will be brought forward to remove the exemption from value-added tax for private school fees, which will enable the funding of 6,500 new teachers. My government will establish Skills England, which will have a new partnership with employers at its heart, and my ministers will reform the apprenticeship levy. Legislation will be introduced to give greater rights and protections to people renting their homes, including ending no-fault evictions and reforming grounds for possession. Draft legislation will be published on leasehold and common hold reform. A bill will be introduced to establish an independent football regulator to ensure greater sustainability in the game and strengthen protections for fans. My government will improve the National Health Service as a service for all, providing care on the basis of need, regardless of the ability to pay. It will seek to reduce the waiting times, focus on prevention, and improve mental health provision for young people. It will ensure mental health is given the same attention and focus as physical health. My ministers will legislate to modernise the Mental Health Act so it is fit for the 21st century. A bill will be introduced to progressively increase the age at which people can buy cigarettes and impose limits on the sale and marketing of vapes. My ministers will also legislate to restrict advertising of junk food to children, along with the sale of high caffeine energy drinks to children. A draft bill will be brought forward to ban conversion practices. My government will take steps to help rebuild trust and foster respect. Legislation will be brought forward to introduce a duty of candour for public servants. A bill will be introduced to establish a statutory Armed Forces Commissioner to act as a strong, independent champion for our gallant armed forces and their families. Legislation on race equality will be published in draft to enshrine the full right to equal pay in law. My government will strengthen its work with the devolved governments in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, so that the best outcomes possible are delivered for citizens across the United Kingdom. My ministers will establish a new Council of the Nations and Regions to renew opportunities for the Prime Minister, heads of devolved governments and mayors of combined authorities to collaborate with each other. My government will continue to support the political institutions and devolved government in Northern Ireland. In consultation with all parties, measures will be brought forward to begin the process of repealing and replacing the Northern Ireland Troubles Legacy and Reconciliation Act 2023. Measures to modernise the Constitution will be introduced, including House of Lords reform, to remove the right of hereditary peers to sit and vote in the Lords. My ministers will strengthen the integrity of elections and encourage wide participation in the democratic process. The government will propose a modernisation committee of the House of Commons, which will be tasked with driving up standards, improving work practices and reforming procedures. My government will ensure a strong defence based on the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation's common values of individual liberty, democracy, human rights and the rule of law. Its commitment to NATO will remain unshakable. It will maintain a strong armed forces, including a nuclear deterrent. To ensure that the United Kingdom's defence capabilities are matched to the changing nature of global strategic threats, my government will conduct a strategic defence review. My government will continue to give its full support to Ukraine and its people, and it will endeavour to play a leading role in providing Ukraine with a clear path to NATO membership. My government will seek to reset the relationship with European partners and work to improve the United Kingdom's trade and investment relationship with the European Union. My ministers will seek a new security pact to strengthen cooperation on the mutual threats faced by the United Kingdom and the European Union. My government will play its part in trying to secure long-term peace and security in the Middle East. It is committed to a two-state solution with a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state. Later this week, my government will host the European Political Community meeting at Blenheim Palace. The Queen and I look forward to our visit to Samoa, alongside the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in October, and our visit to Australia. Members of the House of Commons, estimates for the public services will be laid before you. My Lords and members of the House of Commons, other measures will be laid before you. I pray that the blessing of Almighty God may rest upon your councils.
They have no plan for Scotland's future.
Sir Pugin. Yeah.
Given the Prime Minister's desire to strengthen strategic alignment with our European neighbours, will he, in the interests of public safety, follow the lead of France, Denmark, Belgium and others and ban the burqa?
Yeah. Prime Minister.
Can I welcome her to her place? but I'm not going to follow her down that line. But now she is here and safely in her place. Perhaps she could tell her new party leader that his latest plan to bet £80 billion of unfunded tax cuts, with no idea how he's going to pay for it, is Liz Truss all over again. Although, considering I think she was a Conservative member when Liz Truss was leader, she probably won't.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Division or Labour patriots working for national renewal.
In light of recent court cases and the conviction of Reform's former leader in Wales, that no party whose leaders take Russian bribes can be trusted to defend our democracy.
Mr. Speaker, Labour is introducing an elections bill to protect our democracy from foreign interference. But look at Reform. The member for Clacton and his deputy worked alongside someone who took money to spread Putin's propaganda. Whatever their denials, they have serious questions to answer about what they knew. But that is the choice. Kremlin cronies sowing division or Labour patriots working for national renewal. Once right, the party opposite let roads crumble after years of uninvestment. We're building infrastructure that working people rely on. Mr. Speaker, that's £1 billion to repair bridges, tunnels and flyovers across the country and £92 billion in major road and rail upgrades. Mr. Speaker, we're rebuilding Britain. They can't even spell it. Speaker, we're certainly not going to be following the leader of the opposition. She unveiled what she called her golden economic rule, I think it was. That involves, on the one hand, £47 billion of spending cuts. That's a fifth of the NHS budget, with not a shred of detail about where the money would come from. The Institute for Government said it was on shaky foundations. More unfunded tax cut, more austerity for public services. They haven't listened and they haven't learned.
Mr. Speaker, the whole House has heard that the Prime Minister lost his brother during the Christmas period. So can I offer him, on behalf of my party, our sincerest condolences? Yeah. The new year has started with a focus on the decades-long rape gang scandal. Across the country, thousands of girls were tortured and sexually abused at the hands of men who treated them as things to be used and disposed of, destroying many lives forever. The Prime Minister has mentioned previous inquiries. He is right. There has been an inquiry into child sexual abuse, but it wasn't about the rape gang scandal. In its 468 pages, it mentioned Rotherham just once. Is the Prime Minister confident that we know the full extent of rape gang activity?
Prime Minister.
Can I first thank her for her condolences, and can I thank her for reaching out over the Christmas period when I lost my brother? I really did appreciate that, and I appreciate it today. Mr. Speaker, on the question of a further inquiry, there have been a number of inquiries, some of them localised, including the Mayor of Manchester's inquiry recently, and of course a national inquiry Professor Jay carried out, took 7 years, had 20 recommendations, none of which actually were implemented by the party opposite when they were in government. Now, this is a really serious issue. We must focus, obviously, on the victims and survivors. There's no fixed view on the victims and survivors about a further national inquiry. There are mixed views. But there is a view, and I share this view, that what is needed now is action on what we already know. We already know, myself from personal knowledge when I was Chief Prosecutor, that warped ideas, myths and stereotypes about victims are at the heart of this. We've known that for a decade. The Jay report called for mandatory reporting. I called for it 11 years ago. What we need now is action. What can't be tolerated is the idea that this afternoon members opposite will vote down a bill which protects children, include Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let me just. One of the provisions in the bill is to protect children vulnerable today who are out of school, to prevent abusers ever taking those children out of school. I implore members opposite to defy the misleading leadership of the Leader of the Opposition and vote for a really important bill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm shocked that the Prime Minister would say that actions were not taken. He knows full well that we accepted 18. He knows full well that we accepted 18 of the 20 recommendations in the Jay inquiry and went further, launching a gangs task force that found 550 more perpetrators. That shows that there is still work to be done. In Rotherham alone, there have been over 1,400 victims. Across Oldham, Bradford, Bristol, Rochdale, and dozens more towns, there have been thousands more victims. But no one has joined the dots. No one has the total picture. And it is almost certainly still going on. One victim from Telford, and I know he says that victims have different views. We have different views across this House. But one victim from Telford says she wants a national inquiry because it will hold people accountable in a way that previous inquiries have not. It is very possible to have actions, take on more, and still have a national inquiry. So why won't he listen to victims and launch a national inquiry which would have the power to summon witnesses and make them give evidence under oath?
Mr. Speaker, she says they accepted the recommendations. They didn't act on them. Exactly. One of the central recommendations was mandatory reporting, and it still hasn't been enacted. I called for this 11 years ago. They've been tweeting and talking. We've been acting. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has been an MP, I think, for 8 years. Her party have been in government for 7.5 of those 8 years. She was the Children's Minister. She was the Women's and Equalities Minister. I can't recall her once raising this issue in the House, once calling for a national... I can't recall her once raising this issue in the House, once calling... and distorts... last year, Mr. Speaker... Last year they predicted recession, and what did we get? The fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of the year. They opposed NHS investment, and what did we get? 5 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. They tried growing the economy with millions on NHS waiting lists, with our schools crumbling and holes in our road. It didn't work. What do they want to do now? Go back to the same failed experiment.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about speculation. The only people who've been speculating are his government every single day for the last 3 months. And he mentioned inflation in his last answer. Inflation has nearly doubled since they came into office. He wants a round of applause because it's come down a little bit. I will remind him that food inflation is up 4.9%. That is making life miserable for all of those people out there. But life miserable for all of those people out there. I will remind him that food inflation is up 4.9%. That is making life miserable for all of those people out there. But let's go back to thresholds, because this is important. When the Chancellor made that promise to unfreeze the thresholds, it wasn't an off-the-cuff comment. She said it on the floor of this House in her budget speech. That was a deliberate statement of government policy. So if she breaks such a clear promise, how can the public trust the word that she says next week?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about inflation. It went to 11% on that. 11%, and the country is still paying the price. Mr. Speaker, she talks about inflation. It went to 11% on that. 11%, and the country is still paying the price. Mr. Speaker, she talks about inflation. It went to 11% on that. 11%, and the country is still paying the price. Inflation is down this morning, wages are up, and we've had 5 interest rate cuts, and that's because our fiscal rules are ironclad. And the Leader of the Opposition and the party officers have no credibility on the economy. She was Treasury Minister during the worst decline in living standards on record. And she said that Liz Truss got the mini-budget, have no credibility on the economy. She was Treasury Minister during the worst decline in living standards on record. And she said that Liz Truss got the mini-budget 100% right. Not much room for flexibility there. And she said that Liz Truss got the mini-budget 100% right. Not much room for flexibility there. 100%, that's pretty full marks, Mr. Speaker. She might want to tell us if that's still her position, 100% right for Liz Truss.
Mr. Speaker, I was Treasury Minister at the height of the pandemic. We cleaned up that mess. Maybe he could clean up some of his own mess. And I'm going to repeat what the Chancellor said, because it's quite clear that the whole front bench has forgotten. She said, I have come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips, and yet that's what they're planning to do next week. And all of this speculation is having real-world consequences. Just this morning, the UK chair of ExxonMobil said, and I quote, "The government needs to understand that the whole industrial base of the UK is at risk unless they wake up and realise the damage their economic policies are doing." Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us, is the loss of UK industry the price the country has to pay for having a clueless Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, let me just say about ExxonMobil, it is a difficult time for the workforce there, and we must focus on supporting them. We've been meeting the company for over 6 months and explored every possible reasonable avenue. They've been facing losses for the last 5 years. It's best to do the detail before you chunter. And they're currently losing. They've been facing losses for the last 5 years. It's best to do the detail before you chunter. And they're currently losing £1 million a week. But she talks about policy and approach. On energy policy, she follows reform. On the European Convention, she follows the man who wants her job. And when her shadow minister said we should deport people lawfully here to achieve cultural coherence, she pretended that it didn't happen. I could go on. She was the coherence. She pretended that it didn't happen. I could go on. She said we should deport people lawfully here to achieve cultural coherence. She pretended that it didn't happen. I could go on. She was the trade secretary that didn't sign any trade deals. Cheerleader for the mini-budget, cheerleader for open borders, and when they were crashing the economy, botching Brexit and running down the NHS, she was right at the centre. She hasn't got an ounce of credibility.
Mr. Speaker, on energy policy, what we are doing is listening to industry. What happened, I had a round table.
Mr. Slinger, please. We don't want to have to sling you out.
Mr. Speaker, just this...
Please. We don't want to have to sling you out.
Mr. Speaker, just this morning, we heard from the chair of one of our largest energy companies. Last week, I had a roundtable with energy companies, and what they had to say about this Prime Minister and his energy secretary is unprintable. They are absolutely furious. Our oil and gas industry is dying, and he's standing there saying he had meetings. People out there are struggling, Mr. Speaker. The budget chaos is causing real anxiety. People are... industry is dying, and he's standing there saying he had meetings. People out there are struggling, Mr. Speaker. The budget chaos is causing real anxiety. People aren't buying houses, businesses aren't hiring, and they are cancelling investment decisions. 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor called a ridiculous press conference to blame everyone else for her having to raise income tax. Then last week, she U-turned on her own U-turn. Instead, we can see they're planning to freeze income tax thresholds, something she said last year would be a breach of their manifesto. They are making it up as they go along. Doesn't the country deserve better than government by guesswork? Country deserve better than government by guesswork.
Mr. Speaker, either we renew our country with Labour or we go back to austerity 2.0 with reform of the Tories. They left waiting lists at record highs, almost 1 million more children in poverty, and they wrecked our public services. She comes here to talk down the country. We're turning the page. More NHS appointments, free breakfast clubs, free childcare, more homes and better public services. That's what we're fighting for, a Britain built for all.
So let's start with something simple. Can the Prime Minister tell the House how much his welfare bill is going to save?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying free school matters on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, in relation to welfare, what we delivered last night was a bill which ends mandatory reassessment of those with severe disabilities. That is the right thing to do. It rebalances universal credit. That is long overdue, and it sets out a pathway to reform of PIP. Mr. Speaker, it's consistent with the principles I set out throughout. If you can work, you should work. If you need help into work, the state should provide the help. The system that they broke doesn't do so. And if you can't work...
I think there's one or two I can spot immediately. Usual voices, same names, please. It's too early to leave the chamber. Prime Minister. I think there's one or two I can spot immediately. Usual voices, same names, please. It's too early to leave the chamber. Prime Minister.
And Mr. Speaker, if you can't work, you must be supported and protected. The reformed welfare system that we're putting in place will be better for individuals, better for the taxpayer, and better for the economy.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think the Prime Minister actually watched what happened in the House yesterday. His bill was completely gutted. A U-turn in the middle of the debate, removing Clause 5. Where on earth was he? The reason why he can't answer the question is because he knows it doesn't save any money. It's going to cost millions. This is the first Prime Minister in history to propose a bill to save money who ended up with a bill which costs money. So if the bill doesn't cut welfare spending, can the Prime Minister tell the House how many people it will get into work?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad you asked that because it gives me the opportunity to say we've already started changing the job centres and investing in support back into work. The Trailblazer scheme, which is doing exactly what she asked me, which is getting people back into work. The bill last night will help people back into work, and of course the Timms review is ongoing. But I tell you what won't help people back into work, what won't help control the costs, and that is voting to keep the broken system. And that is what they did last night. Everybody in this House accepts that the current system is broken. It invites the question, who broke it? They broke it. And last night, they voted for the status quo. The broken system is their policy. That won't help individuals, taxpayer, and it certainly won't help the economy.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell him what we did on welfare. Yes, they can laugh. While they're laughing, they don't know my party delivered the biggest reform of welfare in government. We got record numbers of people into work, including millions of disabled people, and we cut the deficit every year until COVID. The fact is, including millions of disabled people, and we cut the deficit every year until COVID. Including millions of disabled people, and we cut the deficit every year until COVID. The fact is, we're not scared of doing difficult things on this side of the House. We got people back into work. What he forgets is that since the election, since he became Prime Minister, an additional 1,000 people a day are signing on to incapacity benefits. That is 50% more than under us. 50% more than under us. And Mr. Speaker, astonishingly, because of benefits, that is 50% more than under us. 50% more than under us. And Mr. Speaker, astonishingly, because of the mess they made yesterday, because there are no more savings, sickness benefits alone are set to rise to £100 billion on his watch. He cannot reduce that now. He cannot reduce that now.
Mr. McKee, I think we've had a run-in before. I certainly don't want any more. Seriously, you're obviously not getting your timing right because I can hear your voice every time.
I'll start again, Mr. Speaker.
I certainly don't want any more. Seriously, you're obviously not getting your timing right because I can hear your voice every time.
I'll start again, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Start again. Sickness benefits, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Start again. Sickness benefits. Louder for those at the back. Sickness benefits are set to rise to £100 billion because of their mess. They cannot now reduce it. They can't reduce it because of the back. Sickness benefits are set to rise to £100 billion because of their mess. They cannot now reduce it. They can't. For those at the back, sickness benefits are set to rise to £100 billion because of their mess. They cannot now reduce it. They can't reduce it because after last night's humiliating U-turn, we know he cannot control his MPs. They're cheering now, but you signed the amendment. You signed the amendment. Over 100 people signed that reasoned amendment until the bill was completely gutted. He said that he would take the difficult decisions, but isn't the reality that he is too weak to get anything done? The difficult decisions, but isn't the reality that he is too weak to get anything done?
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell them what they did to the welfare system. They broke it. They broke it. And it's the same as the NHS. What did they do? They broke it. Same as the economy. What did they do? They broke it. They broke everything that they touched. Mr. Speaker, I'll tell them what they did to the welfare system. They broke it. They broke it. And it's the same as the NHS. What did they do? They broke it. Same as the economy. What did they do? They broke it. And it's the same as the NHS. What did they do? They broke it. Same as the economy. What did they do? They broke it. They broke everything. And it's the same as the NHS. What did they do? They broke it. Same as the economy. What did they do? They broke it. They broke everything that they touched. And now she describes the broken system that we are trying to fix. What did she do? She voted against the broken system that we are trying to fix. Same as the economy. What did they do? They broke it. They broke everything that they touched. And now she describes the broken system that we are trying to fix. What did she do? She voted against fixing the system that they broke. And I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, and spell that out. They voted last night for the system that is keeping 1 million young people not learning or earning. That is a disgrace of their system. They voted for a system where we have 3 million people out of work on ill health. And they voted for that system. We're fixing it. We're clearing up the mess that they left, just like we're clearing up the NHS and the economy.
He's got some brass neck. Has he read the papers this morning? Has he read the papers this morning? That bill will achieve nothing. It is a pointless waste of time and is absolute proof that he doesn't have a plan. Let me tell the House what's going to happen.
Just like we're clearing up the NHS and the economy.
He's got some brass neck. Has he read the papers this morning? Has he read the papers this morning? That bill will achieve nothing. It is a pointless waste of time and is absolute proof that he doesn't have a plan. Let me tell the House what's going to happen. In November, the Chancellor is going to put up our taxes to pay for his incompetence. We on this side of the House know that you can't tax your way to growth. But people out there are frightened. People out there... Yes. These are the same people who cheered when they talked about the NI rise and the jobs tax. Why are they complaining now? People out there are frightened. Can he, Mr. Speaker, can he reassure them? The same people who cheered when they talked about the NI rise and the jobs tax. Why are they complaining now? People out there are frightened. Can he, Mr. Speaker, can he reassure them by ruling out tax rises in the autumn budget?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she knows that no Prime Minister or Chancellor ever stands... Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, can he reassure them by ruling out tax rises in the autumn budget?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she knows that no Prime Minister or Chancellor ever stands at the dispatch box and writes budgets in the future. That isn't what they did, it isn't what we did. And she knows it. But she talks about growth. For 14 years, we had stagnation, and that is what caused the problems. And I'm really pleased, Mr. Speaker, to show the progress that we're making. I can update the House. Last week, Amazon put in £40 billion of investment into this country, one of the biggest investments of its time. That brought the inward investment to £120 billion in the first year of this Labour government. Mr. Speaker, I can also tell the House that business confidence is the highest for 9 years. That's longer than the whole time that the Leader of the Opposition's been in Parliament. Highest for 9 years. That's longer than the whole time that the Leader of the Opposition's been in Parliament. And the figure the highest for 9 years. That's longer than the whole time that the Leader of the Opposition's been in Parliament. And the figures this week demonstrated and showed we had the fastest growth in the G7 in the first quarter of this year. What a difference to the mess they leave. That's the difference the Labour government made. Accepts Russian bribes to spread Putin's propaganda.
Will the Prime Minister join with me in urging my Conservative Council to get on and spend that money to make roads like May Place Road East safe to drive on?
So this is a local Conservative council telling him not to point out potholes in case they have to fill them. That's outrageous. Just like the record of the last 14 years. Mr. Speaker, we know how problematic, dangerous and costly potholes are to drivers. That's outrageous. Just like the record of the last 14 years. Mr. Speaker, we know how problematic, dangerous and costly bribes to spread Putin's propaganda.
Will the Prime Minister join with me in urging my Conservative council to get on and spend that money to make roads like May Place Road East safe to drive on?
So this is a local Conservative council telling him not to point out potholes in case they have to fill them. That's outrageous. Just like the record of the last 14 years. Mr. Speaker, we know how problematic, dangerous and costly potholes are to drivers. That's why we've delivered record investment to maintain our roads and fix potholes. That's £1.6 billion, Mr. Speaker. That money's been given to councils, but it comes with strings. So my message to reinforce this is clear to the council. Use the money, fix the roads, show how you're carrying out repairs, or lose the money because it's councils who get on with the job of fixing our roads. And I'll make sure the Road Minister follows up with him. Mr. Speaker, my priorities are listening to and standing up for the survivors. That's why we're doing the work on the inquiry. That's why we've reopened the criminal cases, why we brought in mandatory reporting. But I would gently remind them they had 14 years in office. They barely mentioned this issue. Brought in mandatory reporting. But I would gently remind them they had 14 years in office. They barely mentioned this issue. And where there were inquiries, they failed to act on them. We have done more in the time we've been in office than they did in 14 long years. Inquiries, they failed to act on them. We have done more in the time we've been in office than they did in 14 long years.
Would the Prime Minister agree that if Reform can't run one county council, they certainly can't run Scotland, Wales or our United Kingdom?
Yes.
Would the Prime Minister agree that if Reform can't run one county council, they certainly can't run Scotland, Wales or our United Kingdom?
Long years.
Would the Prime Minister agree that if Reform can't run one county council, they certainly can't run Scotland, Wales or our United Kingdom?
Well, he's absolutely right to point out, as voters in Durham can see, what you get if you vote Reform is total chaos and broken promises. Mr. Speaker, councils have a vital role in our communities. And it's not just Durham where Reform are doing well. I think 4 councillors in Kent have just been suspended for bringing the party into disrepute. I mean, bring the party into disrepute is quite something for a party whose Welsh leader accepts Russian bribes to spread Putin's propaganda. What we've done is to have a much closer relationship with the EU, recognising the damage done by the flawed Brexit deal that the party opposite negotiated. We've also struck deals with India and with the US, record investment into this country, and the fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of this year.
Andrew Tate of rape and human trafficking, and British police have issued arrest warrants. The Tates have tried to escape justice, first to Romania, now to the United States, but I'm delighted that Florida has thankfully opened a criminal investigation. But does the Prime Minister agree that people who are wanted by British police of such appalling crimes should stand trial in our country? And given his assessment that President Trump really is a reliable ally, will his government request an urgent extradition of the Tate brothers? Have blocked food, water and medicine getting into Gaza. There is now a humanitarian catastrophe with 2 million people at risk of famine and 1 in 5 facing starvation. Rather than ending this crisis, the Netanyahu government is planning to seize all Gaza indefinitely. Now, I know the Prime Minister will agree that the blockade to Gaza should end, and I'm sure he would agree that it would be appalling if Netanyahu proceeds with that escalation. But will he act now and pick up the phone to President Trump for a joint plan to recognise Palestine and get food, water and medicine into Gaza?
Prime Minister. Well, I thank him for raising this because the situation in Gaza is simply intolerable and getting worse. And we are working with other leaders urgently to bring about rapid and unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, which is desperately needed, obviously alongside the release of hostages, and to get back to a ceasefire, and that work is going on through my team 24/7. I do believe that is the initial action that needs to be taken, but I still fundamentally believe that, however remote it may seem at the moment, the pathway to a two-state solution is the only way for settled and lasting peace in the Middle East, and we will continue with our allies to pursue that path.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure to stand opposite the Right Honourable Lady. Despite what many may think, we have a great deal in common, not least that we both viscerally disagree with the Chancellor's tax policy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure to stand opposite the Right Honourable Lady. Despite what many may think, we have a great deal in common, not least that we both viscerally disagree with the Chancellor's tax policy. And it is great to see the Right Honourable Lady standing in temporarily for the Prime Minister for the second week running, although I know there are many sitting behind her who wish this was a permanent arrangement. Indeed, second week running, although I know there are many sitting behind her who wish this was a permanent arrangement. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, you will find many of their names amongst the 122 who have signed up to oppose the government's welfare bill. They say that the bill is dangerously rushed and ill thought through. So can the Right Honourable Lady explain why she thinks that she is right and 122 of her own colleagues are wrong?